Yo United for human combat by Jumezi ya tobawa ya shishe na ya chinzin mukwa yunwi shumedi mukwa yunwi shumedi. Yes, you could do embe za yeze bawa kwe minenana yunimbe oye His Excellency President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo will deliver Nula's address to the United Nations Assembly. Then sama okaininanan ono na yeze nefa bi yeze do yebeti hukomo ya chenye na adwen afa sama His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo omampinin our Ghana other two oye United Nations abajokufu woni eyimenanan yan kaida the last address other ma oye the United Nations there why oye President Zimmerman Ghana in full our chair this is his last sessional address to the United Nations Assembly, and what we are bringing to you, we are bringing an aspect of His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo's address, his recent address to the United Nations General Assembly. We are looking at an aspect, His Excellency the President reminding members of the United Nations that African continent must not be perceived as a continent of aid. His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo delivered a speech and calling on the United Nations not to perceive African continent as a continent of aid. No, the means in the Ethiopia sama yada to the calling Jumedi no yes President Akufo-Addo. It is not enough to tell United Nations Africa shouldn't be a continent of aid. Yes, President Akufo-Addo, it is not enough to tell United Nations Africa continent must not be considered a continent of aid. Za ayebe kan yebisa omanpenye na etife sama yeda tunde yemi Jumedi do onini de ye catch omanpenye na Addo Akufo-Addo de and I have a kind of Montpellier and Akufo-Addo there. Look, onye enough there, catch United Nations there. Mama one a big man there, where a mana was a strategy. Mama one a big man there, where a mana was a strategy, and now a man at the surface. It is not enough. Na Ebenazi in African continent leaders in sabi warrior them robaya oya the United Nations in when you oya African continent as a continent of aid say esimama obi enhwe obey esesre ada no begina wana montu no begina wawa wenzi yedo onu na oba kire onu na oba ma amanfo wu a oseda wodi na woni wodi amom no the minti na yobisa His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo there. It is not enough only to tell them there, Mama one check a baby man there, or your mana process razi. No Huma Yenizi. Huma Yenu President or your Hananan, one is the inch there. A baby man is beyond 8. African continent is beyond 8. This is what we are talking about. This is what African continent deserve. So we are calling on His Excellency the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Na ya makonya na yente sama oya President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Okay na yinzihu nkomo. Yanko na yankuti asama President okay ono
threatening the democratic progress we have worked so hard to achieve within the ECOWAS community. These coups are stark reminders that democracy is indeed fragile and must be continually nurtured. In Ghana, however,
His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo Nasama okay
Madam President, as I speak today, ongoing in particular knows the cost of being left out. Yes?
His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo at the United Nations General Assembly when he addressed or gave his last address. This is about, he's calling on members not to perceive Africa as a.
Africa in particular knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity. But we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought. We've been viewed merely as passive recipients of aid rather than as equal partners in global progress. The well-meaning promises of assistance have failed to materialize to bring about the long-term change we so passionately need. Such aid as is offered often comes with strings attached, limiting our ability to shape our own futures. Africa is not a continent of despair. She's full of great possibilities. She's required, however, to chart a new course of development. Our young population is filled with energy, creativity, and ambition. The people of Africa are not asking for handouts. They're demanding opportunities in a new global architecture so they can have access to education, healthcare, and jobs to be able to build better lives for themselves, their families, and their descendants. Africa in particular.
Sir Yati, the statement that His Excellency the President Nana Akufo-Addo, the President of Ghana, in summer war, the United Nations General Assembly. We are reminding ourselves that this is his last address to the United Nations. For the past 8 years, that he has become the President of the Republic of Ghana. Now, today's theme for our presentation is that President Akufo-Addo, it is not enough to tell United Nations Africa shouldn't be continent of aid. We are reminding His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo that it is not enough for African leaders to be addressing United Nations, members of the United Nations General Assembly, that African continent should not be considered as a continent of aid. Yes, this is good. But the question that we are asking that what is the contribution of African leaders? What are African leaders doing to make sure that perception, that what he's asking them not to consider African continent as a continent of aid, what exactly is African leaders doing? This is what is important. What is their leadership? What kind of leadership are they giving to transform the status of Africa in the eyes of the United Nations? This is what African leaders must be conscious of. This is what ought to feature in their leadership. Talk is cheap. Man can United Nations there. Mama who will be money there. Where your mana was razi. All that they are good at is Lomas Razi. They should be given their rightful place. If that can be achieved, Obejina African leaders, one more than Obejina African leaders, one is share what we back home. One of for the way we are manning, only no madam a reasoning, no winning Abba Amma Ebi Manana. Yensan Yente, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. In some opinion, no young Tobara, young discuss, young pensapacing. Yes, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. Tinio, Asama open.
Knows the cost. Africa in particular knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity. But we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought. We've been viewed merely as passive recipients of aid, rather
See that His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo say, yes, African leaders, presidents, Africa, the money will know the cost of being left behind. African leaders know the cost of being left behind. And we want to ask that, is it really true that the African leaders know the cost of being left behind? Do they really know? Do our African leaders really know that indeed the cost, the highly expensive cost of being left behind by the international community, or in the eyes of the international community, or when it comes to the international community, African leaders really know the cost of being left behind? Do they really know? And does their actions, their leadership qualities that they are giving to the various African countries, does it really reflect that African presidents really know the cost of being left behind? And what is the standard of living across the African continent? Let us ask ourselves, let us ask our president. This is what our president must respond to. Sabi, it is not enough for His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo just to remind members of the United Nations that, look, Africa must not be perceived as a continent of aid. Africa must not be perceived as a continent of beggars. If the international community can give the needed respect to Africa, then what this platform, the Bitter Tree platform, we are challenging African leaders to exhibit high standard of leadership. They must begin to develop their respective countries. They must begin to give good leadership that will transform the living standard of African countries. And as a result of that, the United Nations will give them the needed respect that they deserve. They will accord them the maximum respect that they are calling for. His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo calling on the United Nations Assembly not to see Africa continent as a continent of aid. And the Bitter Tree platform, we are reminding Nana Akufo-Addo that it is not just a mere rhetoric. It is not just a mere talk that will bring that about. It is by demonstrating reality. It is by doing the needful. It is by giving good leadership to African continent. And when Africa begin to develop, when Africa is seen at that pedestal, at that high level, the United Nations, the international community will give that respect to the African leaders. Africa will be respected. His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, he's talking about what? A continent of aid. Africa must not be seen as a continent of aid. Omampeni Nana Akufo-Addo in Ghana introduced Ghana Beyond Aid policy. Sabio, Omampeni Nana Akufo-Addo introduced Ghana Beyond Aid. Osafomafo Odemoto Oye a committee and all the Ghana Beyond Aid policy now we're introducing it. You'll be some Omampeni Nana Akufo-Addo there. Ghana Beyond Aid policy over him. Ghana Beyond Aid agenda over him. And he fa nozi oman Ghana ekudu. Abana faso eno oman Ghana wenye him. Omampeni Nana Akufo-Addo sabi. Yana kafa warikanya. Yana aworitin him. When was the last time that you heard His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo mention Ghana Beyond Aid agenda in his public discourse? Sabi, are you a person there? Omampeni na Addo Akufo-Addo na rankasa. Probably he has even forgotten that he introduced a policy called Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda. When this and you and Omampeni na Addo Akufo-Addo, what the word will be said over there. Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda nina. Abba for so no the abra oman Ghana. And you do one oman Ghana, and then have we gone beyond it? And the policy, the Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda that His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo by MPP government introduced. Opojina Buchiko name chair abrofoni there. Yes, Ghana yenya omana yaba sesre. Yaba yomana yema yebedi yeno. And then you be say yeno you be so Omampeni Nana Addo Akufo-Addo there. Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda no over him. And this is where the Bitter Trick platform, we are disappointed in the traditional media houses. These are the issues that we should be asking Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. We should be demanding accountability of Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda Nana Addo Akufo-Addo by the MPP government introduced in this country. After the introduction of Ghana Beyond Aid, there will be so. What is the status of Ghana's image in the international community? What are the clear benefits of Ghana Beyond Aid Agenda that was introduced by His Excellency the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo by the NPP-led administration? Sabi, Abadan Faso and the Ghana Beyond Aid or the Abra Oman Ghana. His Excellency the President lifted that Ghana Beyond Aid at African Union meeting. He spoke about Africa Beyond Aid with the vision there. What will implement your Ghana, the African continent, African leaders, the United Nations will embrace, African Union will embrace Africa Beyond Aid agenda. His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, that it wouldn't have been out of place. Those are the directions that the continent should go. But there, how many of MMDAs, the ministers, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo's appointees, do remember that Nana Addo introduced Ghana Beyond Aid agenda? How has Osafo-Maafo-led Ghana Beyond Aid committee integrated the policies in our national discourse? You be Nana Addo Omampeni, you be Omampeni na Bediche, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, who is the flag bearer for the governing New Patriotic Party, the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda sabi abani faso nozabra oman Ghana yetu Nana Addo Akufo-Addo tafi benyini bom kimeza ahwehwe oyo mekon nyen yetu ni tafi benyini bom omu ifaso Ghana Beyond Aid agenda oze abra oman Ghana ofani sensisi do omma Ghana fo yengu de Ghana Beyond Aid na oze be for sure, Ozibra Oman Ghana, engineer papa, yenye Ghana Beyond Aid, and then Omampeni Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, Akujina United Nations General Assembly, Okache United Nations for there. Mama will move a big money there, where your continental was says right. The one says the way then. You should tell us if Ghana and Africa were near continental where at the surface what says Raga, what exactly is African continent in the international community? Look, the American this is Nana Addo Akufo-Addo 1.1. Regional ministers Nana Addo 1.1. As so for Nana Addo Akufo-Addo Omampeni 1.1 sabi Ghana nya ehwe oye mekori jumidi Ghana ni ehwe oye the Bitter Truth or Facebook, YouTube. When was the last time Emena made that today Oye Nana Donashiafo, regional ministers, DCs, Wabo, Ghana Beyond Aid, agenda no do. We want a public discourse matter. With this retitle, can you point to Ghana Beyond Aid agenda infrastructure or the picture or the Abba with district? Ebe to the one say sido. O mampeni na na Danko Akufo-Addo na banka sample o to me funny say. This platform the calling yellow to the tefe beginning bom. Yes see Nana Danko Akufo-Addo o mampeni. Dr. Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia o mampeni na bivichile. MPP Amanyoku Mpenyinfo from the national to the local branch. One chair Ghana for Ghana Beyond Aid agenda na Nana Danko Akufo-Addo Mampenyi Odo Baba Adenene Mfasha Ode Abra Oman Ghana. One for one sense do one chair. And thus is why we are disappointed in the media houses. The various media houses Sikra Ado say to launch Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. There, Obama Ghana, Ozi Bunyi needs to be Oman Ghana. They say, when international community, young conquers the traditional media houses should be interrogated, should be demanding accountability. The output, the benefit of Ghana Beyond Aid agenda now, Oman Penny Nana Danko Akufo-Addo. Here, Oman Ghana says Sika. Oman Ghana says Sika Pudding. What the launching the policy. But you be said there, Ghana Beyond Aid policy nana. Sabi. If a sober no Ozi Abra Oman Ghana. Oman Penny Nana Danko Akufo-Addo. Dr. Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia, the Vice President, MPP party, they should point to Ghanaians the benefit of Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. It's Mamofon. Can they testify to this Ghana Beyond Aid agenda policy that was launched by His Excellency Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic of Ghana? If your citizens cannot see the importance of Ghana Beyond Aid agenda in Ghana, what moral justification do you have to go and deliver a speech at the United Nations calling on them not to see African continent as a continent of aid? Let truth be told to African leaders. Let truth be told to His Excellency the President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo. If Africa is not a continent of aid, you always see our African leaders, their indebtedness to the Bretton institutions, always cap in hands, going around begging for aid, begging for grants, begging for loans. And you are in United Nations telling them not to see African continent as a continent of aid. Look, if governance is about delivering brilliant speeches, His Excellency Nana Danko Akufo-Addo would have been one of the best president beside his plagiarized inaugural speech. Beside his plagiarized inaugural speech, of which no member of his communication team at the presidency was reprimanded. That international disgrace that the president brought to Ghana in the eyes of the international community. Let truth be told. Let someone remind His Excellency the President that governance is not delivering fine speeches. It's about delivery. It's about exhibiting good leadership. It's about bringing development. It's about improving the standard of living of the citizenry. This is what good governance is all about. This is the pillar of good governance. And let African leaders be reminded that African continent, they have let the African continent down. So, Mama Nkojina, United Nations, now we want to announce some, will give only lofty speeches. This is not what African continent deserves. Yente, the president, as he speaks, just listen to His Excellency the President again. The reason we are saying
Africa knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity, but we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought. We've been viewed merely as passive recipients of aid rather than as equal partners in global progress. The well-meaning promises of assistance have failed to materialize to bring about the long-term change we so passionately need. Such aid as is offered often comes with strings attached, limiting our ability to shape our own futures.
Yet His Excellency the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo talking about that, yes, such aids that are given to African continents are always attached with strings. So in there, Abuafo so we be the man no nyam wapapedia waze me be the man then where a bibi man wo chumpun na abana dinti na man empanyimfo a wo a bibi man no sebi won twa na mo wala won fa hyehyɛ pa ngukum dem baba ya mpinto a wona de hye wo twehwɛ no yetum yenya yene saka. This is what African continent deserves. Only na ya rekade look a big era ss adini na yakwa zima ya ofido. If you allow yourself to be fed by someone, you only become a slave to your master who feeds you. Let His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo get this. If African continent will continue with all the resources that we are endowed with, nature did not disappoint African continent. When Zamawura or Duman Kumanyan Kupanzi Dum or yet a Bibiman Nansu, we have been let down by bad governance, bad leadership. African leaders' mentality, I don't wanna what the Biman and the one with Bibiman, Yawatibia, Yawami. Inti, Yeti, and Mampain and Addo Akufo-Addo will remind you that it is not enough only to tell the United Nations not to consider African continent as a continent of aid. We must go beyond that. African leaders must prove their competency. They must give good leadership to Africa so that the world automatically, naturally can respect African continent. If you continue to go cap in hand, begging for aid, begging for grants, begging for loans, and African continents are saddled with huge loans, their indebtedness to the United Nations and other between institutions. How do you expect a debtor to be respected? The irony of the debtor calling for respect. Listen to His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Does he listen to himself when he's addressing these international organizations? And when they write the speeches for him to deliver, governance is not about only delivering speeches. Zayara Kanye, the man deserve better. The citizens of Africa deserve better. The show you are watching is the Bitter Truth Show. Jumedi Kanye ya mkono win Jumedi. Say Omanpeni Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Let's listen to him one more time. Let's listen to His Excellency the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo.
Africa is not a continent of despair. She's full of great possibilities. She's required, however, to chart a new course of development. Our young population.
Also, Africa is not a continent of despair. His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo reminding the United Nations that Africa is not a continent of despair. Now, he believes in development. But the question we are asking that are African leaders doing things that will bring that development to their citizens. Asama you be saying. Anna Omampeni Nana Addo Akufo-Addo at his last address to the United Nations, no you expect that inka or make the number 4 man and net be otini a man the Yokudini with practical evidence. Is he trying to say that? So the reason why the United Nations let's go beyond the talk. Governance Africa, the governance that Africa requires or needs is not delivering speeches. No, we want evidence of good leadership that would transform the living standard of the citizens of Africa. This is what the bitter truth is canvassing for. Listen to His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Let's listen to him.
It's filled with energy, creativity, and ambition. The people of Africa are not asking for handouts. They're demanding opportunities in a new global architecture so they can have access to education, healthcare, and jobs to be able to build better lives for themselves, their families, and their
His Excellency the President, we are giving you the benefit one more time to play the full tape now. He's asking that Africa does not demand what? Aid. Africa should not be seen as a continent of aid. Then we bring our presentation to a close. Let's listen to His Excellency as he speaks. Let's listen to him.
Africa in particular knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity. But we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought. We've been viewed merely as passive recipients of aid rather than as equal partners in global progress. The well-meaning promises of assistance have failed to materialize to bring about the long-term change we so passionately need. Such aid as is offered often comes with strings attached, limiting our ability to shape our own futures. Africa is not a continent of despair. She's full of great possibilities. She's required, however, to chart a new course of development. Our young population is filled with energy, creativity, and ambition. The people of Africa are not asking for handouts. They're demanding opportunities in a new global architecture so they can have access to education, healthcare, and jobs to be able to build better lives for themselves, their families, and their
Yate, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, delivering that statement at the United Nations General Assembly. Yes, African leaders should stop delivering speeches, especially Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. Governance is not about delivering beautiful, brilliant speeches. It's about delivery. It's about evidence. It's about development. When at the United Nations calling on them not to perceive Africa as a continent of aid, we are just asking His Excellency the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, the bitter platform, that yes, back in Ghana, back in your country, you introduced Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. What was the purpose of Ghana Beyond Aid agenda? What was the last time that you yourself, the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, you spoke about Ghana Beyond Aid agenda in your public discourse? What has been the benefits of Ghana Beyond Aid agenda to the country? When was the last time that you heard your appointees mentioning Ghana Beyond Aid agenda in their public discourse? Sabi, it's in the phone Ghana Beyond Aid up for soon or that. And then the policy is to make Ghana go beyond aid, not begging, but then the year bisa please, let's be serious. Governance is a serious business. And at this time that our party seeking to be retained in power, the Bitter Truth platform, we are simply asking account to the people of Ghana the various policies that they have introduced, their impact. How has those policies improved standard of living in the country, in that of Africa? So to me, yeah, it be demanding kind of a shop for the neighborhood, see, like in the Yawaka His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. It is not, as a President Akufo-Addo, it is not enough to tell the United Nations that Africa shouldn't be continent of aid. It is not by words, but it is by actions. Women share there, it be man leaders and sabi you are exhibiting quality leadership. The show you are watching is the Bitter Truth Show. Thank you for watching this show. Stay blessed, stay out of trouble. Like the page, follow us on Facebook, Ghana News on Facebook and on YouTube. Subscribe to Ghana News on YouTube, our channel. Click on the notification bell so that anytime we go live or we upload a presentation, you will be notified. You are the reason we bring this show to you. The show is the Bitter Truth Show. Yeah, that's the thing in there. Actually, your Facebook like page and for comment to work. Echo YouTube at Ghana News. No subscribe. Then number ya DBA the Jumedze ba. Ebu I won't say the Yashin Jumedze Yadaba. You can call show your name page for. Then number your man Ghana. Put your African Union. Yes, say Jumedze Aranian no court win Jumedze. Namin Crowdo. Yes, or Mampen and Akufo-Addo. A some of the United Nations in there. Mama wumbu ibi manda yo mwana wasashaze. The catch your Mampen and Akufo-Addo there. Onye enough. Nyezo hini. Naza ibi man Ghana for hifenyi there. Huminye shishaya ozun puntu baba manamba wana sitinem. Nasa hum ya brofoninum was buji yizi bama ibi man. Jumedzi aranyin no kwa iwi Jumedzi. Nyaman Crowdo unsio. You feel how you say your name. Kodo, when you call me Jumedzi. Yabasan the Jumedzi for Abawako. You can say me. On my opinion, some of the two go United Nations. About to buy your union. And you may it's Saudo. No, you will the home come on. Amata say. Yada see that I can Jumedzi. You know, goodbye.